Hello, hello. We are live, and I am so excited to have Jason and Raina from Baguette Bound joining me today. And they're going to share 5 things that they wish they'd known before they moved to France. And I don't see anybody joining. Oh, I see 2 people joining now. I want to make sure you can hear us. If you can hear us, please comment where you're joining from. I'm
Ooh,
so
yeah.
glad to see you here live. So I just want to share a little bit about who I am. If you are new to my channel, my name is Patricia Brooks. And 6 years ago, I decided to take the plunge and move to France. And now I help women who are ready to start the next chapters of their lives, doing that in a new country, find the confidence and courage to do that. And on this channel, I share stories like Jason's and Raina's and all things France and moving abroad. And I'm so excited to be live here today with Jason and Raina. So I want to give them the opportunity to introduce themselves.
Hi. I'm like, wait, we didn't plan which one of us was going to say it and do this part. So can you guess who will probably end up being, if you've watched any of our videos, who talks more?
Yeah, it's not that close. Yeah.
Actually, why don't you go ahead now that I said that?
Yeah, so I'm Jason. And this is my wonderful wife, Raina. And yeah, so we were born and raised in the United States, and we embarked on an adventure and moved to France about 18 months ago now.
Yep.
Little over a year and a half.
August 2022.
Yeah.
We landed in Lyon.
Yeah.
And over time, sorry, you can tell we planned that. So we were here, and we originally just thought we would be here for a year. We wanted to learn the language. We wanted our daughter, we have a daughter who's 12, she was 11 when we came, to experience another culture, just like broaden her view of the world, travel Europe some. And then we got here to France and we fell in love with it. We didn't want to leave. So we asked to extend our visa. That was granted. Very exciting. We just bought a house. So we talked about both those things in our 2 most recent videos.
Yeah.
And here we are embarking on staying longer term. And now on our channel, it was really challenging in the US to find information about moving to France or even taking a sabbatical, which was kind of like what we saw ourselves as doing, although we still worked and went to school during that time. So people who were still of working age and had school age kids. And so once we felt a little more settled, we thought, okay, we want to start to share parts of our journey that we feel like could be helpful to other people that want to do the same thing. And those are the kind of things that we talk about on our channel.
Yeah. And I think, the information you offer is really important. I think it's, from
Thank you.
having had the experiences and kind of learning so that people coming behind you can say, oh, yeah, I know to do this. And not that, just is so very helpful. So I appreciate all that you do.
All right. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Oh, I see we have someone coming from Denver. Yay!
Denver.
Go Colorado.
Yeah.
we moved here from Louisville, Boulder County. So we weren't too far from there.
And then Sharon from Virginia. Hi, Sharon. Hey, Dion.
Atlanta.
Bonjour.
Yes. And we have someone typing in French. Woohoo!
Yes. And Nubianette from California. So people are joining. So I think that we can go ahead. It's a great segue because, you offer on your channel information about, the house. And but when you moved to France, well, it was initially temporary, but when you moved to France, there were some things that after you got here, you wished you had known or somebody had told you. So we're gonna unpack what 5 things you wish you'd known before you moved abroad. So you moved to France. So what is number 1?
Oh, the language. So we came here not speaking any French. I think the day we landed, we'd taken maybe 3 months of introduction to French. So we knew bonjour, au revoir. Sometimes we got them mixed up and said the wrong thing. So we were starting at the very basic level. But I think the thing that's become apparent the longer we've been here, I mean, it just really does take time. You really have to commit to it. It's easier being here because you're surrounded by it. You're enmeshed in, there's French every day. It's all around us. But we still have to dedicate and spend time. It just doesn't come through osmosis. And just walking into the store and hearing French all around us, I don't walk out of the store knowing French any better.
Yeah. So I think that was the thing we didn't plan for, that I think that just knowing, and this might be the case if you're working or going to school, which our daughter's going to school. So she lives her life in French, but like we are working at home remotely and speaking English
Mostly
to
in
each
English,
other and mostly working in English. And so, I mean, I think there was part of me that thought we would get here and it would just get easier because you would be living here, but it still really takes dedicated time and effort. And the flip side of that is I also wish I would have known that I could be less stressed about how quickly I was learning as long as I was slowly progressing, because people have been so kind. Like if you are trying, people have no idea. French people have no idea how full my heart is. All the people who have gotten through Franglish with me, or like when we've gotten stuck, not been frustrated when we had to just pull out the Google Translate. So it was like two things. I wish I would have realized how much time I need to budget to really start to improve my skills. And also that you don't actually have to stress about trying and using the language because people are kinder than you expect.
Yeah, I think those are really two really good points. I think the language thing, I've heard people say, well, I'll start learning the language once I get there because I'll be immersed, right? It'll be all around me, and maybe it will be. And as you, Raina, as you said, your daughter's picking it up really quickly because, well, she's living her life in French. Right. I'm right there with you. I'm working in English. I have some English speaking friends. I initially work to more immersed and more around the language, but it takes time, as you say, and your brain takes time to put the synapses together so that you get it. And there's no rushing that, as you say, and it's being very conscientious about setting time aside to do it, because it's not necessarily the most fun thing in the world.
No, I mean, and you have to be willing to be bad at it before you're good. And that just takes kind of self-discipline, honestly. I mean, I've noticed when we have breaks from our French classes or time with our French tutor, and I don't have that like accountability, I'm so much likely to just like not study. Even though every time I spend time with my French friends or we go to a village event, I'm like, I want to know everything tomorrow. But so anyway, just the idea of starting as soon as you can, knowing that it's going to take time, literal time, and time over, periods of months while you're here. Like just plan for that. Plan for that. But don't be afraid to try it, because people are really nice, even with your broken French.
And that's what I've heard is, an experience too, is that if you try, right? If you're trying, if you just go into a shop and just say, do you speak English, and you don't put forth any effort, they're not going to appreciate that. But if you are trying, you're exactly right. So,
it just is a totally different reaction if you start with hello or you start with bonjour. It just sets the stage, and it's a totally different outcome, I think. So
totally, definitely.
And so, having said that, you wish you'd known that learning the language would take so much time and energy and effort and planning. How would you categorize your learning now? How comfortable, on a scale of 1 to 10, how comfortable are you?
I would say, I mean, we've formally passed A1 French, which is the most basic, but it was funny this weekend because my daughter is practically fluent now, at least with middle school in there, right? Like vocabulary outside of that, maybe not, but we volunteered at a book sale this weekend. And there was a pretty big mix of both French and Anglophones there. And so someone asked my daughter, who here speaks the best French? And someone pointed to me, and my daughter goes, oh, she can get by in situations like this. I was like, oh, yeah, I think I can. Like, some simple back and forth conversations. I would not say I can discuss like politics or deep philosophical texts or, and we're learning all new vocabulary about houses.
Oh,
So,
yes.
But I would say simple everyday exchanges are getting much easier. Was that what you would?
Yeah, I think so. I think our comprehension is leaps and bounds ahead of our ability to speak the language. So that can be difficult at times, that I understand what someone's saying, and I really struggle with how to respond outside of simple, if it's yes or no, great, that's easy. But in-depth conversations are still pretty hard to do in French. It's definitely a broken Franglish back and forth when I have to talk.
But I will say, like, learning a second language as an adult is like the world is opening up to you again. It is. I can see on your face. So don't be discouraged. It's like every time you're able to do something, it's just like you feel like you've unlocked a new level of a video game. Like last year during, the big sold sales twice a year. And I was somewhere and like I found something I wanted, but it was the last one and it had like a little mark on it, but I thought I could get it off. But I was like, this thing isn't marked down enough for me to pay for it when it's damaged. So I went and like talked to the sales lady and asked, and I was like, I walked out of there and I like called him immediately. I was so excited. So it sounds ridiculous, but like it just, the amount of personal satisfaction that you will get out of having being able to do new things or understand new people. It's
or have people understand you.
Oh, yes. It's a whole new exciting thing, especially at midlife when maybe you haven't been challenged to do things in the way that learning to communicate in a second language is challenging me. And I think we need those things as we age to like keep our brains flexible.
Well, my dad, when he retired, he decided he was going to go to community. So language. So it sounds like you wish you would have known it. You're taking steps to improve. You've improved. You're seeing the benefit of your efforts. What would you say the second thing is that you wish you would have known?
So this one is like a very logistical thing because, our channel, we tend to focus on like the things that come like the few months and the few after. And we should put this in quotation marks because we are not saying you should do this.
No, this is not a recommendation.
Listen up now.
We've heard other people have done this and we're like, oh, that's such a good idea. I wish we would have known. So the driver's license exchange program, if you are lucky enough to be from a state in the U.S. or from another country where you can exchange your driver's license directly for a French one, don't have to take the driving test. So when you do this, you actually mail off your driver's license and then you get a French one back in the mail. Well, that means every time you go back to the U.S. and someone wants to see a driver's license, you don't have one anymore. Which when we've gone back has led to like, people just aren't used to seeing a foreign ID and they don't feel comfortable with it or their computer system isn't set up, right? Like I had trouble renting something because they were like, no, the digits aren't the same. I can't put them in our computer system, right? So it's really useful to be able to still have a copy of your US license. So what we have heard, some people
a physical copy, the real
physical copy
card,
that you can take back to the U.S. and be able to use when you go back to the U.S. to visit. So we've heard that if your driver's license happens to get reported to be lost, they will send you a copy of it, and then you can bring that copy with you. And then when you mail off your driver's license to the French administration, you will still have a copy of record. Wow. Voila.
I love it.
And it will just make your life easier when you go back to the US.
Oh, wow. That's a good one.
We were at a store in the US recently and we had our French licenses. They're easy to understand. It's our name. It's all the same, but just that it looked different and there were some words in French. The woman was struggling.
She was stressed.
didn't know which box to put in, where our birthdays was, which was the first name, which was the last name. She quizzed us over and over to see
She
if
thought they were fake.
we were really this person. How did I spell this? What was the date?
And if you were going to fake an ID, would you fake a French one?
I know.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'd pick like Idaho. I mean, yeah.
And the crazy part is that in France and in a lot of Europe, on dates, the day and month are reversed.
Yes.
So the day and month are reversed on the licenses. So when she's looking at the license, she sees the day, the month, the day, the year. But in France, it's the day, the month, the year. So she's quizzing us on our birthdays, and we're getting it wrong. And so that was like, oh no, wait, you don't understand. I actually got it right.
And of course, she's like, Sure. Yeah. We were just like, I wish we would have known this trick before, because not that it's a huge deal, but if you plan to go back, to the US regularly, it'll just make your life easier. And you have to do it while you're still in the US. Yeah. So
yes.
Small thing, but I wish we would have known.
Yes. Nubianette says, I know people who have gotten a second license and keep one. So
yeah, smart.
It's
good to be prepared.
It's a little behind the scenes trick.
Yes, but you didn't hear it here. You
didn't hear it here. And sorry, go ahead.
No.
I was going to say that actually brings us to our third one. You were probably about to go there, but it's kind of a related thing. So it's again like something that administratively is different that we could have prepared for in the US had we realized it. So this is, I would think, mainly for women, because I don't know a lot of men who have changed their name after they got married, but maybe.
Oh, my ex-husband did.
Okay, so this would apply. That's awesome. So this would apply to any men out there, women, whoever, people who have changed their name after marriage. So the French administration puts all kinds of things in your maiden name. Was this a shock to you when you're
I never changed my name.
Oh, so So you were already on the French system. Because,
yes.
I mean, when I talked about this to my French friend, she's like, well, yeah, that's your name. That's the name you're born with. All of, her documents just has like it's an abbreviation. Oh, someone who's French here probably can help me with this. It's like an abbreviation that means like name of use, which is her married name, which she uses, but it's, so my point here is if you have been married particularly if you've been married more than once and your name has changed, you need a paper trail of marriage and divorce certificates, no matter how many there are, all the way back to that original name that you were bestowed upon at birth, because the French administration will want to see them, because I was married before Jason. Dun, dun, dun. And so my name on our marriage certificate does not match the one on my birth certificate. And this was like, the French administration was like, what is happening here? Who is this person? And why would I have brought my marriage certificate from my ex-husband? Like, that never occurred to me. Yeah. But lo and behold, I had to get a hold of the courthouse back in Dallas, Texas, and get a copy of that thing because it had my maiden name on it. It showed us getting married, then my divorce certificate, then that traced back my name to it anyway.
And so was this for your original visa application, or was it for the renewal, or?
It was for my carte vitale.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, for our health insurance.
Yeah, we found, and I've heard this anecdotally from other people, so I'm curious if you have too, but other expats, that the carte vitale is usually the one that they want a, what is the thing that like makes a document official? An apostille.
Yeah, that's it.
The apostille that like certifies that your document's official, or like they're much more nitpicky, at least, where we have been, than about the visa application, which is kind of funny.
Yeah. Well, so for me with the carte vitale, what I remember is I think I had to send in my translated birth certificate 3 times because
Oh,
what
me too. Me too. I just kept sending
I think
it.
that's actually part of the process. They make you show you really want it because
Yeah.
we had the same thing.
You're just like, okay, here's another one. Here's another one. Yeah.
And so what you're saying is, so if you've had a name change, you need to have your birth certificate, but then you need to have all of the court documents or whatever that show when you changed the name and what you
Yes.
changed it to, so that they can put it together that, oh, you are the same person.
Yeah. You got to show that paper trail of marriage and divorces, which, I mean, obviously, if you haven't changed your name or you've only been married once, then it's not a problem. But if you have one in the middle, then they want to see that and prove, because your name's not going to match. So had I known that, because it caused a delay, it took a long time to get the paperwork from the US. So it kind of caused a delay in getting our healthcare squared away. So
now you know, and you're sharing it with the masses.
Bring all the papers. Bring all the papers with you. If you are not sure if you should bring a paper, bring the paper.
And that holds true when you go to any appointment either. I mean, too. I mean, you might have it back at home. Just bring everything.
Just bring it. Yeah. If you got a rolling file cabinet behind you, you just do it. It will make them happy. They love paper. Love it.
So there's a question from Nicola. Will we need 3 court-approved translated birth certificates?
So maybe. You only have to get it translated once, and then just make a copy. Like we would make a literal. When we got to France, we bought a printer with a copier function and a scanner function. You may have lived without a printer for years in the US. I don't know how you could do it. Well, you could do it here. There's little print places, but it was easier.
Oh, but it's expensive.
It is. It is per page. So and we would just make a copy again, like a literal photocopy of that translated birth certificate, and send it over and over.
All right. Thanks, Nicola. All right. So bring all the name change documents.
All the name change. Yep.
All right.
Provide
what would you say is we're on number 4 now?
I think, yeah.
We're moving through these. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. So copies are good enough. That's good to know. Yes.
Yep.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Never send your original. Never. And I was going to send my originals because I forget which agency, but they asked for it. Like, no joke.
It does say
I don't know if that happened to you, but it says to send it. And like everyone around me, like Valerie, my French friend, everyone's like, no, never send your original. And I literally just made copies, and it was fine.
That was never a problem.
It was never a problem. Yeah.
So good. Yes, I planned retirement rumble. Yes, I plan to bring my printer.
You'll have to get a different cord to change it out, but yes, to plug it in.
All right. So number 4.
Yeah. So this one's a little less about planning, but I think for us, and maybe for a lot of people we've talked to, the dream of public transport in Europe and France is a big thing. And trains and subways, and the idea of maybe not having a car and changing your life in that manner. And I think something that we didn't realize before we arrived was maybe just how unevenly distributed public transportation is throughout France. I think, we had very different expectations. Prior to moving here, we'd been to Paris for a week, so we knew what public transport was like in Paris, and we just kind of made the assumption that it's kind of like that everywhere, right? Buses, trains, subways. And we found that while public transportation in general is much better than the US and much more widespread, it is still very uneven when you're comparing, even between big cities, but moving down into smaller towns and villages and out into the countryside. Oftentimes that public transportation just kind of disappears as you get into some of the smaller areas. So I think it's important for people to really think about how important is not having a car. If that's part of your vision and your dream, I can't say in the US that I ever really liked owning a car. It was just part of life. I had to have one to get around. But if that's part of the dream that you've got of coming here, you've really got to think carefully about where you're going and what kind of public
Yes.
transportation will be available. I remember being, when we first arrived, we ended up in a town of about maybe 10,000 people with kind of the surrounding community. And I remember just being shocked because where is the bus stop? There was a train station, but there was no buses. So actually getting to the train station was, well, impossible. I had to drive.
Actually, you had to call, there was like 2 private taxis in town, and you had to call their wives in French and schedule like a private taxi to get to, or I mean, if you didn't have a friend to drop you off, if you didn't have your own car. So, I mean, I think that was something that we just didn't realize. Like, yes, I mean, we did a video recently on essentials, like don't move to a village without like these certain essentials. And everyone in the comments kept saying a train station, a train station, a train station. And we were like, yes, but just having a train station out in the countryside doesn't mean you can do everything you need to do. And we didn't really understand that before we got here. And I think also like taking that into consideration when you're choosing housing, because I think a lot of people see how inexpensive rents are in the countryside or houses, but your transportation costs are probably going to be higher. If you need to have a car, you have to pay for gas is really expensive here. Whereas your like rents or buying something in the city are going to be higher, but you probably won't need a car. So like those things budget wise also kind of go hand in hand and you have to consider together. So those were just, things we didn't really know here because we had not come to France a lot before we moved here. And so I think you have preconceived notions you don't even realize you have.
Well, but I see it in the online groups all the time. Well, I want to move to just say Europe, and I don't want to have a car, right? I hear that a lot. I see that a lot, and I think that's based on the idea that, well, yes, well, it's better than in the U.S. If you're in a smaller or remote village, it might not be what you're thinking, right?
It might not.
Right. So conveniences of getting around when you want to get around and relying on public transport in a small village might not be to your liking.
Possible.
Yeah. It's not to say that it's not doable, but it's difficult. And it's going to limit certain things you can do.
Yeah. Well, so, we have a bus here, it's a 15-minute walk from my apartment to the bus stop. And that's fine. In my second year, when I moved to Surrey, I didn't have a car, right? So I relied on the bus and it got me, where I needed to go, but it also took me a lot longer. Sometimes the bus was running late and I didn't think it was going to show up. And, so it's those sorts of things. And if I wanted to go into Perpignan and, maybe see a show in the evening, I'm going to either need to get a hotel or stay at a friend's house because the bus stops at 7:30, right? So, and on Sundays, but there's no service. So if I think this is a great point, if you want the convenience of being able to get around, either choose your city wisely or get a car.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to crush anyone's dream of like being able to look out on the rolling hills and also like not have to drive, but it is.
That's not impossible. The dream's still out there, but do your homework.
It's hard. Yeah. And I think also it can be a little isolating if you're outside of a big city with good public transportation as you make friends. Because I mean, like, for example, the middle school that Juliana went to her first year pulled from a bigger area, right? It wasn't just our village. And so she made friends with kids that lived in like adjacent villages. And even though we had a train station, there was no way to get to those without a car. So like she would have missed events or seeing them if we hadn't had a way, to get her there. So it's one of those things. It's kind of a trade-off for village life because that's where we want to be. But
yeah. Well, so let me ask you this. So, what size village are you living in now?
I think it's like 3,000,
Yeah.
around 3,000.
Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah.
not huge, but not tiny either.
No,
Yeah.
no, it's the one that we were in the very first year. We were actually, Jason said like a 10,000 person village. We were actually like 10 minutes outside of that in a little 500
true.
person commune.
Yeah.
And that was like
a hamlet. Yes.
whoa. Yeah. It was super small and it was beautiful. And the neighbors were so sweet. And we spoke so little French then. It makes me sad because I like think about them. And I couldn't really.
Yeah. They tried so hard.
Yeah, it was. And, but it did feel kind of isolating. It was just so small. And, you know, a lot of the people in that little 500, they were like related to each other, right? They'd been there forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah. And here in this town, so we do have a bus. We have one bus stop and it goes to two different cities. They're about a 25-minute bus ride and it only runs a couple times a day. So like you said, I might be able to get there, but I might not be able to get back today.
Oh, as a matter of fact,
so
we heard
it is an option. It is really limits our ability to get around.
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off, but we heard a story not long ago. The bus driver here, he had taken a couple into the town, a couple towns over. They were going to meet some friends for drinks. And they asked him, well, what time does the bus come back through so we can catch it to get back home? And he told them. And then he remembered later on that it was whatever, it must have been a weekend. There was some change in the schedule that day and he had forgotten and he felt terrible. So this couple, they said they were waiting and waiting for the bus to come back and there's no bus. And then they see this like old van pull up and it was the bus driver. He had driven in his personal car to go back and pick them up because he felt he knew they would just be stuck there. I know. I was like, oh my gosh. So anyway.
That's a good story. And so when you moved here, so you came here initially you thought it was temporary. So you hadn't bought a car then. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah,
and so you decided to buy a car after experiencing, yeah.
We're doing it now. We're still renting a car.
We're still renting. We keep thinking we're about to make a good decision and it keeps getting pushed off. So.
I'm going to watch your video about how you bought a car.
Okay.
We just keep putting it off. It's one of those things like, you know, I mean, mattress shopping and car buying, no one wants to do those in the US or here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I mean, and so we just kind of keep putting it off and we need to go do it. Cause we've had like kind of like longer term leases. Like they're not like 36-month leases, but and then right now we're using Leclerc because we keep thinking it's going to be the last month. Did you know Leclerc rents cars?
No.
Yeah. The grocery store, y'all.
Yeah.
The grocery store, Leclerc rents cars.
It's a great option.
It's an amazing option. If you don't drive a lot, so it's super cheap. Like for a kind of a small average, like little car, it's like $8 a day, but, they charge, you know, you have to pay per kilometer you drive. Mm-hmm. So if you just need it, like for a few, like as a backup second car for a few things around town, but you know, if you're taking a road trip, it's going to get expensive fast.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll look forward to a video about how to buy a car in France.
Yeah. Okay? Oh, man.
Just gave you an idea.
Yeah.
All right. So on to number 5 already.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. This one was hard. I don't know. It's just the feeling of overwhelm, I guess, that hits you once you're here. You know, and I think it's this, that, you know, there's, how should we say this?
Well, we were talking about this before we came on, because originally we had told you number 5 was something different. But as we were talking about it, we were just remembering that, you know, you get here and you're so excited because you chose to do this. You're living the dream, right? And then you have to do like one thing, like go buy shampoo, which you've been doing probably your whole adult life, and you're exhausted at the end of the day. And we were talking about, I just wish we would have realized and given ourselves more grace about how normal it is to just feel tired doing normal things, to like feel constantly like you're barely getting anything done in a day, that, you know, that like you're not being that productive, and just how much energy things take, that like, that's all really normal. You are not failing. You did not make a bad decision. It's not that you did the wrong thing or you're just not going to hack it. It's just a normal part of the transition. It's like, I remember telling someone, a friend, when we first moved here, I was like, you know, that feeling when your grocery store rearranges where everything is? You know, you've been going there forever and you're like, I should be able to be in and out. And you go one time and you can't find anything and you're exhausted and frustrated. I was like, that's how life feels. But it gets better. And you just got to know it's going to get better. And it's not
That's a good analogy. I like that.
Yeah.
I think what also adds to that, the fatigue, is you're doing lots in a foreign language. And so to speak and listen and do things in a foreign language really works your brain. And so that takes a lot out of you.
Oh, it does. Yeah.
It is. And it's day after day. It's over and over and over throughout the day.
You're not going home. There's no break.
Yeah. And it is, like you said, it's mentally exhausting. All the simple things can be hard. And I certainly wish we'd known that in advance, so that when we were going through it, we were able to say to each other, you know what, this is exactly what we expected.
Yeah.
And it's okay. And I know we both had moments in those first many months where, like, maybe this was a terrible idea.
We did.
Because I don't know about you, but I am so tired. I just want to go home. I just want to go back. It's so hard.
Fortunately, we never both had those on the same day.
Yeah.
So it's almost two years in, right? So
this summer will be 2 years.
Okay. So in the beginning, it was exhausting, right? Everything took effort. You felt unproductive. You felt exhausted just for doing the most basic thing.
Yeah.
Now, 2 years later, how would you say that has changed for you in terms of degree?
Yeah. I think daily life doesn't take so much energy anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know which kind of yogurt we buy at the store. I know what shampoo and conditioner looks like. I can have a short conversation with the postman, and I know how to ask for tracking when I send my tax documents. So just getting through the day doesn't feel so draining now. So now it's more like, and I can enjoy things more, right? Because, when I go to the market, I don't have the same anxiety about, does this farmer let you touch the vegetables, or do I need to use the basket, or do I right? Am I going to know how much money to give him when he tells me, all those things are just better. So it's like the daily life doesn't take as much energy, and that gives you more space for other things, like buying a car, buying a house, which will be the new things, right? That will then be like, got her. Jason was doing our French taxes this weekend, and he amazes me. I mean, he was over there translating French, and I'm just amazed that he does it.
I'm not there on that one yet. I got to do that a few more times before it's easy.
Yeah.
But
so I don't.
But yeah, just those, all those frustrating, overwhelming, fatiguing moments. They're also small victories when you get to the end of the day. And as you keep racking up those victories, it does get easier to do the harder things that are still hard because you haven't done them, or it is genuinely a hard thing that even if you've been here for a long time, maybe it's difficult. It's easier to look back on those successes and just kind of push yourself forward and say, okay, this is okay. It's all right. Just keep going. You're going to do this.
Yeah.
Remember when it was hard to go to the grocery store, right?
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah. I think it's I don't know how many other people on this call are of similar age, but I grew up playing Mario Kart, Nintendo, or not Mario Kart, like Mario 3, Mario Brothers, the video game. And, when you die, you'd have to go through the same stages, and you just get faster and faster at those basic stages. And then it wasn't until you got to more advanced things that you'd have to slow down and be careful and figure it out. It's, it's the same thing here, right? All the stuff you do all the time will get so much easier, takes so much less energy. And then it's the new things. So new levels unlocked.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah. I think it's good to hear this, because as you said, you weren't really sure, well, maybe this was just a bad idea and we need to, go back, or, well, is this normal? And I think there's, I don't know where I heard you need to give, if you're moving abroad, you need to give it at least a year, because you will have, you'll have that part where it's really hard and you're exhausted and you're questioning yourself. And then you'll get to later where maybe maybe it's easier, right? And you want to stay, or maybe it's like, yeah, no, this isn't right for me, or this isn't the right country for me. And you can make the right decision without having something, fuzzy your thoughts about whether it's right or wrong.
Yeah, definitely. I think that then you're making a more informed decision at your sort of highest functioning self instead of your exhausted.
Yes. And with the insights you've gained from the time that you have invested in figuring things out, right?
Yeah, definitely. Because it's not to say, I mean, there's nothing, we thought we were going to go back after a year intentionally. And I think like as the year closed, we already knew, even before we decided we would stay long term, that we would stay a second year because of this, because we looked at each other and thought, we're just now starting to really be able to like enjoy the richness of this experience, after several months of adjustment period. And I think had we gone home, even if we had still planned to go back to the US this summer after 2 years, I would have been so grateful for the second year, because you have the lay of the land, you feel more comfortable, you can, not that we didn't enjoy the first year, but there was just a lot more happening.
Yeah. The transition period is tiring, as you said. I think about my first year, the end of my first year, my move here, I thought it was going to be a more permanent move, but I wasn't sure. And so I said, well, I'm going to see how this goes for the first year. And at the end of the first year, and the reason that one of the reasons I'm still trying to figure out what the real reason is, I had to move to France out of the blue. It was this wild hair of an idea. Then I'm writing my third book on it, and we'll see what the end is in that. But at the end of my first year, there was this feeling like, I'm not necessarily sure that this is long-term for me, but I need another year. I feel like I wanted to learn French. My French was getting better, but it wasn't at a level that I could say, okay, yes, I came and did what I needed to do with the language. And so I said, yeah, definitely another year. And then after, that 6 months into my second year, I was like, yeah, this is it. And that's when I moved to the smaller village, and, was just, communicating in French with an insurance agent, all in French and understanding. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to get this. This is good. This feels good.
Yeah. That's kind of interesting. It sounds like 18 months was actually about the same mark for both of us, that we were like, yep, we're staying. Like where
that's French phone calls. Phone calls in French are a big benchmark too. Those are the huge victories where the first one that goes well, we'll like high five each other and run across the house. You won't believe what just happened. I just talked on the phone.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I have a friend, she's actually from the Netherlands, and speaks like 3 other languages, like many Europeans. But she said when she learned French, she goes, when I didn't dread it anymore, when I saw a French phone number pop up, she's like, I knew I had hit a new milestone. I was like, someday.
Yeah. Well, so those 5 things that you wish you had known, I think, are so very helpful for anybody looking to move to France or anywhere, because it gives you a sense of what to expect, or some tips that could ease your way. And I think that's wonderful. We have a couple of questions that I'd like to have answered. What happens, this is from Dion, what happens when you need to renew your driver's license? You need to show a U.S. address and current state of residence, right?
I believe so. We haven't done that yet, but people who I know have. So like we keep a PO box in the US to get our US mail, but we know other people who, when they leave the US, they just start to use a relative's address as to get mail, as their, address for filing taxes, like that. It becomes their permanent US address. So I would say whatever address you're using for your permanent US address, that is probably what you would use. But we have not done that yet. So
have you? Yeah. So for me, you have a friend who is letting me use their address. So a couple of friends who are letting me use their address, and that's how I do it, because you kind of need an US address for certain things. And so yeah. Thanks, Jan, for that.
Yeah, and be aware. So we have also heard of people actually moving their residence to a state that has a driver's license exchange if they're from a state that does not, to make it easier. But if you do that, like if you start using a relative's address and you change that as like your address of record, that can have other implications for your taxes. So for example, if that state has or doesn't have state taxes, or to vote abroad. So just kind of be aware that if you're changing that address of record, it may affect other things.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not necessarily, it might help you with the French driver's license, but then it might botch other things.
You might create a problem.
Yeah.
Just,
exactly.
Yeah. So, and so are you from a state that had a driver's license exchange?
Okay. Yeah.
We were, luckily, we were from Colorado, so we were able to exchange our Colorado licenses in France. And if we were to return, we would be able to do the inverse as well and exchange our French licenses for a Colorado license.
Yeah. So to answer her question, and this is like, I don't know this. But it's making me think of it. Since it is an exchange, I don't know if, like, do you still have a US is it still on record there, or is it like either it's in France or it's in the US? I don't know the answer to that.
I don't have a way to verify this, but I know in the exchange process, you check a form saying that you agree and you recognize that when France takes your license, they will terminate your US license as regard to this. But how that process works and whether or not my Colorado license has been officially terminated, I have never bothered to check it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think
France
so.
told me they would.
I don't think so.
Taking their word. I don't know.
Yeah. So
I just think about all of the administrative stuff that French administration needs to deal with here, and they struggle with, or it takes forever for them to do. So I think they're gonna.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know either, but
but they are. I mean, the thing is, like, the exchange program means that they agree that either a license from either place is valid. So it should be fine.
So here's a comment from Au revoir Pet, our French life. Just joined UK expat here, been here for over 3 years, totally empathize with Jason and Raina. If you ever need any Brits things we wish we'd known, let us know. Yeah, that would be interesting, right?
Yeah. I think there's, so let's see, 3 years. So you guys came after Brexit then, I think, right? Because Brexit was 4 years ago. And I think there's a lot of things that are different now coming here that are more difficult that used to be easy for people from the UK.
Let's see what else. We've got another question from Nicola. Did you ship any stuff from Denver and store it? If so,
I'm laughing because this is like the one question we were like, if we get this question, we can't answer it.
Yeah.
No. I don't mean like legally, like we're not like it's not like we're in like yes, we because we thought we were going back to the US, we put our stuff in a storage unit. And that we're still figuring out exactly how we want to resolve that. Because we're past the year. So we would need to pay customs on everything, which is like 20% of the declared value, approximately. I know there can be some variation. And shipping is very expensive. And there's a lot that we can let go of. And there's some things I don't really want to. And so we're kind of like in a real quandary right now about how we're going to handle that. But you can be assured we will make a video when we figure it out.
I already did.
Yeah, I think I saw your video about that. Yeah. And yeah, you did the same. You had the same thing. A story.
Yeah, exact same thing. Store it. I'll just do it for a year. And then a year turned into 2 years. And then it's like, oh, this is expensive. And then when I finally faced, my storage shed, I was like, oh, this is stuff that is sentimental. And it's really all I have left of my life in the US. I don't want to let it go. So I had it shipped, and I had whittled down my stuff to basically nothing. And so when I purchased the shipping, the container, whatever it went in, I had so much more space. I could have shipped so much more, but I only had what I had. And of course, I did have to pay the customs, and it's sentimental stuff. So it's like, this stuff is worthless.
Right. I know. We did. So like the addendum to the story is like, we went back recently and tried to clean it all out. We were just going to get rid of everything, and we couldn't do it. Like at the last minute, I was just like, I cannot. I mean, I just had things that had been in my family for years that I was like, I don't want to let this stuff go. Like, it's important to me. And I realized that memories are not attached to stuff. And because we got rid of so much and it was hard, but it just got down to a few things, exactly like you said, that it was like, okay, this is a part of my life that I still want with me because I feel good having these things. And so, so we're still figuring that out. How was your experience with shipping? Oh, I'm sorry.
It was good. I shipped. So I was dealing with my storage right at the beginning of COVID, right? So I was like,
She was in the US as France was like shutting the borders to deal with her storage unit.
And so I was like, okay, I know I need to clear this out and and drive this stuff up to Baltimore so that at least they have it and it's in process. So, but it was a pretty smooth process. I usually have problems with movers and shippers, and it was a pretty seamless process. I came back to France in May of 2019, and I think my stuff arrived a month or two later. And it was just pay the customs, and you got your stuff, and they brought it up. I'm on the second floor. They brought it up, and so it was a pretty good experience.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. That's reassuring, because I do think there's like just the small things that are left, but they're too big to put in suitcases. Some things, so we'll have to make that decision.
Let's see what other questions we have.
It's more challenging than you would imagine to wrap up your life in, your home country. You're just connected in ways sometimes you don't expect or think about until you're not there.
There's another question. I can't find it. It was about, did you sell your house before you moved? I can't find it. Can't put my hands on it.
Let's see. Oh,
well, did you?
Oh, yeah. I see it. Sold their U.S. home before or after they moved. Well, this is you.
Well, kind of both. So we owned one house as our main residence in the U.S., and then we had an additional house that was an investment property that we were renting out. So our main home we actually sold before we moved, and we kept the rental house as our fallback. That it was plan B. If we're there for a year or two and we're going to come back, we've still got one house still in the U.S. But just a few months ago, towards the end of last year, we sold that rental house. So both, I guess.
Yeah. So we sold it as a French tax resident, which I think is usually what people are actually asking when they ask that question. And Jason is literally doing our taxes now, figuring out exactly what that will mean. But what we are not tax professionals. We are not here to give tax advice. But I mean, so far his takeaway has been, for the most part, the tax treaty is helpful in that most of your U.S. income is taxed in the US, your French income is taxed in France, and there are credits across for each of those. So, it avoids double taxation. It doesn't mean that you will necessarily, you will still pay taxes somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
But exactly how that, because I know people are usually wondering how it might be different because of the capital gains. And again, we're figuring that out.
Yeah. Well, we're not going to talk about that.
Yeah, no, it's just such a whole different animal. And I would say seek professional tax advice specific to your situation, because everyone is going to be different. It's complicated and it's nuanced.
What I've heard is that, after, and you'll find out, right? If you move, if you're a French tax resident and you sell your house in the US, that the taxes can be steep. That's what I've heard. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think we knew that there could be those implications, but ultimately we don't live our lives around tax policy. When it came down to it,
yes.
So this is what needed to happen at this moment in our life.
Mm-hmm.
And, if that costs a little more money, and fortunately we were not in a situation where that was a make or break amount. If you are, then you probably want to know down to the dollar what that difference is going to be. And we were lucky to not be. So it was a decision based on the life we wanted and not on tax policy. And that's what I'll say.
And that, I think, is so very important. I think I'm right there with you. Some people say, oh, well, if I move to this country, it's cheaper than France. Well, my heart isn't in that other country, right? And so it's exactly what you said. We don't live our life around tax policy. We want to be here, and it was a decision that we made, and I think that's a great point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So ask us after he finishes the return.
We'll see in a few weeks.
But again, I'm sure there'll be a video on that someday.
Yes. Well, so if there, we're going to wrap up here, but I'd like for you to share a little bit about what you do. You've got a website, you've got a YouTube channel, and let me post those. Can you share a little bit about what you offer?
Oh, yeah. So obviously there is lots of free education on our YouTube channel. We focus really on a lot of what happens in the months just before and the months just after you get here. And for people who, particularly if you are still working age and if you have children, because we found it really hard to find information for people in that category. So someday we'll be in that glorious retired category with all of you who are watching thinking that you're moving after you're not working, but we're not there yet. So information around that. Currently we offer one-on-one consults. So if you're looking for more personalized advice or want to pick our brains about your specific situation, that is how we do that. You can book those on our website, and we'll see what comes next. We love helping people figure these things out and pursue something that maybe they didn't think that they would. So we'll see how Baguette Bound grows over the coming months and years, adding other things. But for now, it's YouTube videos, and you can book a consult with us.
Yeah, great. Thank you for sharing that. And so I think what you offer is a great complement to what I offer, right? Mm-hmm. So I help people with the mindset stuff of figuring out, who they need to become, what habits or characteristics do they need to build so that once they get here and it's hard and it's exhausting, that they're able to power through that in a way that feels good to them. And so if that is something that you're considering a move abroad and you are ready to find that confidence and courage and those skills that you'll need to thrive here, then I'd love to have a complimentary discovery call with you so that you can figure out where you are, what's holding you back, and if our working together could help you get there sooner. And you can go to my website, thecouragecatalyst.com/future expat to book your time there. So if you've got questions, you'd like a consult for more information or more, things around that, go check out Baguette Bound, check out their website. And if you're looking for some mindset shifting, schedule a consult with me. All right.
Yeah. I think preparation for a move like this starts a long time before you actually make the move. And you start to do that work with people. So if this is something you're thinking like, oh, when I retire, or oh, maybe in 5 years after some other milestone around your kids or something else in your life, your parents, like whatever it is, usually, I mean, it's not too early to start to prepare for becoming that person who's going to make that move because it's big. So, and that's the work that you do.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. And I people ideally, sign up for my program or start working with me 18 months to, 2 years to 18 months ahead, because there's the packing, it's the getting rid of stuff, it's the talking through, or do I store, all of those things that I can say that because I did the same thing. So
we did too. And I feel like I'm moving to team get rid of everything, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see once we're on the other side of it.
Yes.
It's definitely exciting, but it's certainly an expedition, and you have to start before you fill out your visa paperwork or before you land in France.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And so we've got some thank yous here. Thank you. Very informative as always. We've got Desire the Jolly, great information. Thank you again. Retirement Rumble.
Thank you guys for being here.
Yeah.
Yes. All right.
It was lovely to have conversation.
I want to thank you so much, Jason and Raina, for joining me today for this live. It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot, and I appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you for giving us the opportunity.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
And thank you, everybody who joined us live or in the replay.
Yeah.
I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.